The crystal chandelier above table 12 cast expensive shadows across white linen. Elena Martinez had been staring at it for 3 seconds too long, watching the light fracture into pieces that wouldn't stay still. Her vision was doing that thing again, where the edges went soft and blurry, like someone had smudged the world with their thumb. She blinked hard, focused. The tray in her hands held 4 plates of seared duck breast, each one costing more than she made in a day. Her arms trembled under the weight, but that wasn't new. Everything trembled lately. Her hands when she tied her apron, her voice when she spoke to customers, her entire body when she stood in the shower at dawn, watching bruises bloom purple and yellow across her ribs like poisonous flowers. "Table 12, Elena," Marcus called from the kitchen pass. "They're waiting." She knew they were waiting. She'd been standing here for 20 seconds trying to remember how to make her feet move. The restaurant hummed with the sounds of wealth, quiet laughter, the clink of wine glasses, the rustle of silk and tailored wool. Bellissimo was where Chicago's elite came to be seen, to make deals, to pretend they were civilized. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Table 12 wasn't like the others. Elena had learned to read danger in her 8 months working here, and Table 12 radiated it like heat from asphalt in August. 6 men in dark suits, all of them carrying themselves with the casual confidence of people who'd never been told no. At the head of the table sat Dante Moretti, and even if she hadn't known his name, she would have understood he was different. He was probably 35, maybe 36. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins, all sharp angles and aristocratic lines. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly cut, and he wore it like armor. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Dark, almost black, and currently focused on the document spread before him with laser intensity. She'd served him twice before. Both times he'd barely looked at her, offered a curt nod of thanks, left a tip that was exactly 20%. Efficient, forgettable, safe. Elena approached the table, her shoes clicking softly against marble. "Gentlemen, your entrees." She set down the first plate in front of a man with silver at his temples. Her hands were steady. "Good." The second plate, third, fourth, almost done. She reached for the fifth plate and the room tilted. Just a little. Just enough that she had to grip the edge of the table to keep from swaying. White lights popped behind her eyes like camera flashes. Her ears rang with a high, thin sound that drowned out the restaurant's ambient noise. "Miss?" Someone was speaking. "Are you—" The tray slipped from her grip. She heard it clatter, heard glass shatter, heard someone curse. Then the floor was rushing up to meet her, and she couldn't remember how to stop falling. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. The world spun, and then she was being lifted, cradled against a chest that smelled like expensive cologne and something warmer beneath it. Cedar, maybe. Or sandalwood. "Call Dr. Ricci," a voice said above her head, deep, authoritative, familiar. "Tell him it's urgent, and clear the back office. Now." Elena tried to speak, to say she was fine, that she just needed a moment. But her tongue felt thick and useless. Her body had stopped obeying her somewhere between standing and falling, and now she was just floating, disconnected. She felt herself being carried, heard doors opening, footsteps echoing in corridors she didn't recognize, the restaurant manager's voice, high and anxious. "Mr. Moretti, should we call an ambulance?" I said I'm handling it." That voice again, cold enough to freeze blood. "Get back to the floor." Then there was softness beneath her. A couch, maybe. Leather that creaked slightly as weight settled beside her. Cool fingers pressed against her neck, checking her pulse. She forced her eyes open. Dante Moretti's face hovered above hers, and for the first time since she'd started working at Bellissimo, he was actually looking at her. Really looking, with those dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. His jaw was tight, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. Angry, she thought distantly. He's angry. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena." Her voice came out as a whisper. "I'm sorry about the plates. I'll pay for—" "When did you last eat?" The question caught her off guard. She tried to think, but the days had started blurring together somewhere around Tuesday. Or maybe that was last week. "This morning, I had coffee." His eyes narrowed. "That's not food. Actual food. When?" "I don't— Wednesday? I think Wednesday." Today was Friday, or Saturday. She'd lost track. Dante's expression went very still. He reached for her wrist and she flinched instinctively. The movement was small, automatic, but his gaze sharpened. He lifted her arm slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't pull away. She was too tired. Her uniform had long sleeves, black polyester that covered everything from wrist to neck. Standard issue for all Bellissimo servers, required to maintain the restaurant's elegant aesthetic. But when Dante pushed the fabric up, exposing her forearm, the aesthetic shattered. The bruises were a timeline, fresh ones in deep purple, only 2 days old. Older ones fading to yellow-green, a week past. And beneath those, the faint shadows of bruises that had healed and been replaced, over and over, for months. His fingerprints, preserved in her skin like evidence she couldn't erase. Dante stared at her arm. Then, very carefully, very deliberately, he set it down and pushed up her other sleeve. More bruises. These ones wrapped around her wrist in a perfect handprint, like she'd been grabbed and held too tight. Like she'd tried to pull away and failed. "Who did this to you?" His voice was quiet now. Dangerously quiet. "No one. I'm clumsy. I bruise easily." The lies came automatically, worn smooth from repetition. She'd told them to her co-workers, her neighbors, the pharmacist who filled her prescriptions and pretended not to notice the finger-shaped marks on her neck. "Don't." One word, but it carried absolute authority. "Don't lie to me, Elena." "You don't understand." "Then explain it." Before she could answer, the door opened. A man in his 60s entered, carrying a leather medical bag. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and moved with the calm competence of someone who'd seen everything twice. "Dante," he said, nodding. Then his gaze fell on Elena, and his expression shifted. "What happened?" "She collapsed. Haven't eaten in days, and she has injuries that need examining." Dante stood, creating space. "Check her thoroughly, Marco. Everything." The doctor, Marco, approached gently. "Hello, Elena. I'm Dr. Ricci. I'm just going to take your vitals, all right?" She wanted to refuse, wanted to stand up, apologize for the disruption, go back to work. But her body still wasn't cooperating, and somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, she was tired of pretending everything was fine. Dr. Ricci worked efficiently. Blood pressure, dangerously low, heart rate, elevated, temperature, slightly below normal. He examined her arms, his weathered hands gentle as he documented each bruise. Then he asked her to lift her shirt. "No," Elena said automatically. "I'm fine. I just need to eat something and—" "Elena." Dante hadn't left. He stood by the window, arms crossed, watching. Let him do his job. There was something in his tone that made refusal feel impossible. Not threatening, exactly. More like inevitable, like arguing with gravity. She lifted her shirt slowly, exposing her ribcage. The bruises there were worse, darker, shaped like kicks and shoves, and that one time Carlos had thrown her against the kitchen counter because dinner was late. 3 of her ribs were cracked, she was fairly certain. They'd been hurting for 2 weeks, a sharp pain every time she breathed too deeply. Dr. Ricci's face went carefully neutral. Professional. But she saw his hands tighten on his stethoscope. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long what? How long has someone been hurting you?" 8 months. Since the day Carlos moved into her apartment and transformed from charming boyfriend to controlling nightmare. Since he'd isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, taken control of her bank account to help manage finances. Since the first time he'd grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks and called it an accident. "I don't know what you mean." Dr. Ricci sighed. He continued his examination in silence, documenting everything. The partially healed fractures in her ribs, the defensive wounds on her forearms, the ligature marks on her wrists from that night 2 weeks ago when he'd tied her to the bed frame and left her there for 6 hours while he went to the bar. When he finished, he packed his bag and approached Dante. They spoke in low voices Elena couldn't quite hear, though she caught fragments. Severe malnutrition, multiple injuries in various stages of healing, classic presentation of ongoing domestic abuse. Dante's jaw went tighter with each word. When Dr. Ricci finished, Dante turned back to Elena. His expression was completely controlled, but she could see fury burning beneath the surface. Contained, purposeful fury. "What's his name?" Dante asked. "Whose name?" "The man who's been hurting you. His name." "I can't—" Her voice broke. "You don't understand. If I tell anyone, if he finds out I talked to someone, he'll—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Unable to voice the threats Carlos whispered against her neck when his hands closed around her throat. Dante crossed the room and crouched beside the couch, bringing himself to her eye level. "Listen to me very carefully, Elena. You're not going back to him. Whatever he threatened you with, whatever he said he'd do if you left or told someone, it doesn't matter anymore. Because now you're under my protection, and that changes everything. I don't need your protection. I need my job. Your job is safe. Your housing is safe. Everything you need is safe." He said it with absolute certainty, like he was stating facts rather than making promises. "But first, you need to tell me his name." She looked into those dark eyes and saw something that should have terrified her. Dante Moretti was dangerous. Everyone who worked at Bellissimo knew it, though no one discussed it directly. He owned half the South Side, controlled operations that existed in legal gray areas and darker spaces beyond. He was a man who made problems disappear with a phone call, but sitting there, broken and exhausted and so tired of being afraid, Elena didn't feel threatened. She felt safe. For the first time in 8 months, she felt like maybe someone could actually help. "Carlos," she whispered. "Carlos Ruiz. He lives at my apartment, 2847 West Division, apartment 3C. Dante nodded once. He stood and pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "What does he do? Where does he work?" "Construction. He's a foreman at Castellano Brothers on North Avenue." More typing. Then Dante made a call, speaking in rapid Italian that Elena couldn't follow. When he hung up, he looked at Dr. Ricci. "Take her to the safe house on Lakeview. Stay with her. I want updates every 2 hours." "Where are you going?" Elena asked, though part of her already knew. "To handle your problem." Fear spiked through the exhaustion. "Please don't hurt him. If you hurt him, the police will get involved and I'll have to explain and—" "Elena!" Dante's voice cut through her panic. "I'm not going to hurt him. I'm going to have a conversation that ensures he never comes near you again. There's a difference." "But, do you trust me?" The question hung in the air. She'd known this man for maybe 20 minutes total across 3 brief interactions. She knew nothing about him except his name, his reputation, and the fact that he'd caught her when she fell. But when she looked at him, really looked at him, she saw something that reminded her of the person she used to be. before Carlos, before the fear. Before she'd learned to make herself small and quiet and invisible, she saw someone who kept his promises. Yes, Elena heard herself say, I trust you. The Bellissimo's back office had become Elena's refuge for the past hour. Dr. Ricci had given her something for the pain, not enough to make her drowsy, just enough to take the edge off the constant ache in her ribs. He'd brought soup from the kitchen, chicken broth with soft vegetables, and watched with quiet concern as she managed 3 spoonfuls before her stomach cramped in protest. Slowly, he'd said gently, your body needs time to remember how to process food. Now he was making phone calls in the corner while Elena sat wrapped in someone's suit jacket. Dante's, she realized, catching the scent of cedar and expensive fabric, trying to process what had happened. She'd collapsed in front of a Mafia boss, exposed her bruises, given up Carlos's name and address like she was handing over classified secrets. The smart thing would be to run, to leave Chicago entirely, change her name, disappear into a city where Carlos couldn't find her. She'd thought about it before, late at night when he was passed out drunk and she could think clearly enough to plan. But running required money, and Carlos controlled every dollar she earned. The door opened. Elena tensed automatically, but it was just Dante returning. He looked satisfied. That was the only word for the expression on his face, like he'd completed a task that brought him genuine pleasure. It's handled, he said simply. What does that mean? It means Carlos Ruiz no longer lives at your apartment. His belongings are being packed as we speak and will be delivered to his mother's house in Cicero. His employment with Castellano Brothers has been terminated with a generous severance package, contingent on him leaving the state within 48 hours. Dante sat in the chair across from her. He's been made aware that if he attempts to contact you, approach you, or even think about you too hard, the consequences will be severe and permanent. Elena's mind struggled to process the words. You evicted him? From my apartment? Your name is on the lease. Legally, he has no right to be there. Dante's tone was matter-of-fact. I simply expedited the process and ensured he understood the importance of cooperation. But the lease? I'm 3 months behind on rent. The landlord was going to evict both of us next week. Your rent is current. All arrears have been paid, along with the next 6 months in advance. The room tilted again, but this time from shock rather than malnutrition. You paid my rent? 6 months? That's... She didn't even know how much it was. Carlos had always handled the money, claiming she was bad with finances. That's thousands of dollars. It's handled? I can't accept that. I can't let you just... Elena. Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Listen to what I'm about to tell you, because I'm only going to say it once. You collapsed at my table because a man has been systematically destroying you for months, starving you, beating you, controlling every aspect of your life. That ends now, tonight. And if helping you requires money, then I'll spend it. If it requires resources, I'll use them. If it requires violence, his voice went very quiet. Then I'll apply exactly as much as necessary. But you will never go back to living in fear. Do you understand? Tears burned behind her eyes. She'd cried so much over the past 8 months, silent tears in the shower, hidden tears in the restaurant bathroom, desperate tears into her pillow when Carlos was too drunk to notice. But these tears were different. These came from a place she'd almost forgotten existed, the place where hope lived. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that suggested old pain, carefully controlled. 5 years ago, my sister Sophia was in a relationship with a man who hurt her. She tried to hide it, tried to handle it herself. By the time our family found out, it was too late. He'd isolated her completely. When she finally tried to leave, he stopped, jaw working. She didn't make it out. Elena's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just let me help you. He met her eyes. I couldn't save Sophia, but I can save you. And I will, whether you fight me on it or not. The conviction in his voice left no room for argument. This wasn't charity or pity. This was personal. A debt he owed to a sister who couldn't collect it, paid forward to a stranger who'd collapsed at exactly the right table. Okay, Elena said softly. Okay, I'll let you help. Dr. Ricci drove Elena to the safe house in a black sedan with tinted windows. She sat in the back seat watching Chicago's lights blur past, trying to reconcile the past 3 hours with the 8 months that preceded them. This morning, she'd woken up on the couch. Carlos had claimed the bed, as always, and wondered if she had the strength to make it through another shift. Tonight, she was being driven to a secret location by a Mafia doctor, while said Mafia boss dismantled her abuser's entire existence. The safe house turned out to be a luxury apartment in Lakeview, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Dr. Ricci showed her around with the gentle efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Bedroom with fresh linens, bathroom stocked with toiletries, kitchen fully supplied, security system with panic buttons in every room. Dante's men will be stationed outside, he explained. You won't see them, but they're there. If you need anything, and I mean anything, press any panic button or call this number. He handed her a phone, new and expensive. Dante's number is programmed in, so is mine, and a few others who can help. Elena took the phone with shaking hands. How long do I stay here? As long as you need. There's no time limit, no pressure. He smiled kindly. For now, focus on resting, eating small amounts regularly, letting your body heal. I'll check on you tomorrow morning. After he left, Elena stood in the center of the apartment and tried to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. She was too numb, too overwhelmed, too disoriented by the sudden shift from nightmare to whatever this was. Safety felt like a foreign language she'd forgotten how to speak. She took a shower, long and hot, using soap that smelled like lavender instead of the cheap bar soap Carlos bought. She found clothes in the bedroom closet, still tagged, soft cotton pajamas in her exact size, which meant someone had researched her, knew her measurements, prepared for this scenario before she'd even collapsed. The thought should have been creepy. Instead, it felt like being seen, like mattering to someone after months of being told she was worthless. Elena ate half a sandwich from the stocked refrigerator, forcing herself to go slowly despite her body's desperate hunger. Then she lay in the enormous bed and stared at the ceiling, waiting for Carlos to come home. Waiting for his key in the lock, his heavy footsteps, his voice demanding to know where she'd been and who she'd talked to. But Carlos didn't have a key anymore. Carlos was packing his things under the watchful eyes of Dante's men. Carlos was leaving Chicago with a severance check and the understanding that returning meant consequences he couldn't survive. For the first time in 8 months, Elena was alone in a space where no one would hurt her. She fell asleep before she even realized she was crying. Dante Moretti stood outside the apartment building on West Division, watching his men carry boxes down from 3C. Carlos Ruiz sat on the curb nearby, flanked by 2 of Dante's enforcers, looking smaller than the 6.2 frame suggested. Fear did that to people, shrunk them down to their true size. Everything's out, boss, Marco reported. Apartment's clean. His stuff's loaded in the truck. Dante nodded. He approached Carlos slowly, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed, non-threatening. But Carlos flinched anyway, which told Dante everything he needed to know about the man's capacity for violence. Bullies always recognized bigger predators. Carlos Ruiz, Dante said pleasantly, we need to discuss expectations. I didn't know she was yours, man. Carlos's voice shook. I swear if I'd known she was connected to you, I never would have. She's not mine. She's a human being who deserves basic dignity, which you failed to provide. Dante crouched down, eye level. Here's how this works. Tomorrow morning, you'll board a bus to Phoenix. Your brother lives there, I believe. You'll stay with him while you look for work. The severance package I've provided should cover your expenses for 3 months. Phoenix? Carlos looked panicked. My whole life is here. My job, my friends. Your job terminated you for workplace violations. Your friends are being informed that you left town voluntarily. And your life here is over. Dante's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Because if you stay in Chicago, if you attempt to contact Elena through any means, if you so much as drive past her neighborhood, I will know. And what happens next won't be a conversation. You can't just... I can. I am. Dante stood. You're a construction foreman. Good with your hands, I'm told. There's a company in Phoenix that needs someone with your experience. The job's yours if you want it. Fresh start, decent pay, far from any temptation to make stupid decisions. Carlos stared up at him, clearly trying to process the combination of threat and opportunity. And if I don't want to go to Phoenix? Then you're choosing to find out what happens to men who beat women in my city. Dante's expression didn't change. I don't recommend it. The silence stretched. Carlos looked at the truck holding his belongings, at the enforcers watching him with empty eyes, at Dante's perfectly calm face, making calculations, weighing options. Phoenix sounds good, he said finally. Real good. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Moretti. Don't thank me. Thank Elena's mercy, because if the choice were mine alone, you'd be leaving in a different kind of vehicle. Dante turned to Marco. Make sure he gets on that bus. If he's still in Illinois by Monday, handle it. Yes, boss. Dante walked back to his car, pulling out his phone. He called Dr. Ricci first. How is she? Sleeping. Finally. I gave her something mild to help, but mostly she's just exhausted. A pause. Dante. The injuries are extensive. This wasn't occasional violence. This was systematic. Sustained abuse. She's going to need more than a safe house. She needs therapy, medical care, time to rebuild her sense of self. Whatever she needs, she gets. Set it up. Already on it. I've contacted Dr. Sarah Chen, the trauma specialist who works with our organization. She's agreed to see Elena, no charge. Good. Dante ended the call and stared out at the city. Chicago at night. All glittering lights and hidden darkness. His city, for better or worse. The place where he'd built an empire on the understanding that some rules mattered more than laws. Rule 1. Protect your people. Rule 2. Never ignore a call for help. Sophia had called for help. He'd been in Milan, handling a shipping dispute, and he'd told her he'd deal with it when he got back. 3 days later, she was dead. Beaten to death by a boyfriend their family hadn't known was dangerous until it was too late. Dante carried that failure like a stone in his chest. He'd built an entire network afterward. Safe houses, doctors willing to treat injuries without questions, lawyers who specialized in restraining orders and custody battles, even a fund to help women escape dangerous situations. Hundreds of women had used these resources over the past 5 years. But Elena was the first one who'd literally fallen at his feet. The first one he'd been present to catch. He wasn't going to fail this time. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and panicked immediately. Where was she? Why wasn't she in the apartment? Had she overslept? Would Carlos be angry? Then memory returned. The restaurant. The collapse. Dante Moretti's dark eyes as he'd promised to handle everything. She sat up slowly, testing her body. The pain in her ribs remained, but duller now. The shakiness from malnutrition had eased slightly. She felt not good, exactly, but less like she was dying. The clock read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for 11 hours. Elena padded to the kitchen and found fresh groceries that hadn't been there last night. Someone had been in the apartment while she slept, restocking the refrigerator. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt cared for, protected. She was attempting to make toast when the door buzzed. The security panel showed Dr. Ricci waiting outside. She pressed the button to let him in. "Good morning," he said cheerfully, carrying his medical bag and a box from a nearby bakery. "How are you feeling?" "Confused, overwhelmed, slightly nauseous." She gestured at the toast. "I'm not sure I'm doing this right." "You're doing fine. Nausea is normal when your body's been starved. We'll work through it." He set down the bakery box. "Brought you some options. Plain bagels, muffins, nothing too heavy. Let's check your vitals first." Dr. Ricci was thorough but gentle. Her blood pressure had improved slightly. Heart rate was better. The bruises were already beginning to fade, which he said was a good sign. He changed the bandages on her ribs and gave her pain medication that wouldn't upset her stomach. "You're young and resilient," he said. "Your body wants to heal. We just need to give it the resources and time." "How long until I can go back to work?" "Let's focus on getting you stable first. At least 2 weeks, maybe more. Bellissimo's management has been informed you're on medical leave. Your position is secure." Elena nodded, though anxiety twisted in her gut. 2 weeks without pay meant falling behind on bills, meant losing ground financially. Except Dante had paid her rent for 6 months. She didn't have to worry about eviction. For the first time since her mother died, leaving her with funeral costs and medical debt, she could breathe without calculating dollars. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," Dr. Ricci continued. "Dr. Sarah Chen. She specializes in trauma recovery. I think talking to her would be beneficial." "I don't need therapy. I just need to get back on my feet." "Elena." His voice was kind but firm. "What happened to you wasn't just physical. The body heals faster than the mind. Please, just meet with her once. If you don't find it helpful, no one will force you to continue." She agreed, mostly because arguing felt like too much effort. Dr. Chen arrived that afternoon. She was younger than Elena expected, maybe 40, with warm eyes and an easy manner that immediately put Elena at ease. They sat in the living room with tea, and Dr. Chen didn't ask probing questions or push for details. She just talked about trauma responses, how the brain adapted to ongoing danger, why things like flinching and hypervigilance were normal after months of abuse. "You're not broken," Dr. Chen said gently. "Your mind created survival strategies that kept you alive. Now we work on helping you feel safe enough that those strategies can relax." By the end of the session, Elena was crying. Not the silent tears she'd perfected under Carlos's roof, but real sobs that shook her whole body. Dr. Chen handed her tissues and didn't try to stop her, just sat nearby offering quiet presence until the storm passed. "Same time next week?" Dr. Chen asked as she prepared to leave. Elena nodded, unable to speak past the knot in her throat. Dante visited on the 3rd day. Elena heard the door buzz and checked the security panel, her heart jumping when she saw his face. He wore a dark suit, crisp white shirt, looked every inch the dangerous man he was. But when she let him in, his expression softened. "How are you?" he asked. "Better. Eating more. Sleeping." She gestured awkwardly at the apartment. "Thank you. For all of this. I don't know how to repay." "You don't repay it. You accept it and focus on healing." He walked to the windows looking out at the lake. "I wanted to update you on Carlos." Elena's stomach clenched. "Is he gone?" "On a bus to Phoenix as we speak. I've had confirmation from my people that he boarded voluntarily. His brother is expecting him. The job I mentioned is legitimate. Good pay, decent conditions. If he's smart, he'll take it and build a new life. And if he's not smart?" Dante turned to face her. Then he'll learn why being stupid in my city is a terminal condition. The casual way he said it should have frightened her. Instead, Elena felt relief. For 8 months, she'd lived in fear of Carlos's temper, his fists, his threats. Now someone more dangerous than Carlos would ever be had looked at her situation and decided she mattered more. "I need to ask you something," she said. "And I need you to be honest. Always. What do you want from me?" Elena met his eyes directly. "Men like you don't help women like me without expecting something in return. So what is it? Do I work for you now? Do I owe you favors? What's the catch?" Dante was quiet for a moment. Then he crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "The catch is that you get your life back. You heal. You recover. You become whoever you were before Carlos tried to destroy you. That's it." "That can't be it." "Why not?" "Because people don't just help. Not without wanting something." "Most people don't," he agreed. "But I'm not most people. And after Sophia, I made myself a promise. Every woman I can save is one more name added to the list of people she would have helped if she'd lived. You're on that list now, Elena. No conditions, no expectations. Just help." She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that someone could be this purely good in their intentions. But 8 months with Carlos had taught her that trust was dangerous, that kindness always came with hidden costs. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "How to accept help without waiting for the trap to spring." "Then we'll figure it out together." Dante stood. "I'm not going anywhere, Elena. Whether you trust me today or 6 months from now doesn't change my commitment to making sure you're safe." After he left, Elena sat by the windows and watched the sun set over Lake Michigan. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she thought about the future. Not in terms of surviving the next hour or day, but in terms of possibility. What she might do when she healed. Where she might go. Who she might become. It felt dangerous and terrifying and absolutely essential. She was done being afraid. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 3 weeks passed in careful healing. Elena's body recovered faster than her mind. The bruises faded to yellow shadows, her ribs stopped aching with every breath, and she gained back 8 of the 15 pounds she'd lost. But the flinching remained, the hypervigilance, the way her heart still raced when she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside the apartment. Dr. Chen called it progress in motion. "Healing isn't linear," she'd said during their 4th session. "Some days you'll feel strong. Others, you'll feel like you're back at the beginning. That's normal." What wasn't normal was how often Dante visited. He came by every few days, always calling first, always bringing something: groceries, books, once an entire collection of old movies because she'd mentioned missing her mother's favorite films. They'd talk for hours, sitting in the living room while Chicago's lights flickered to life outside. He told her about growing up in his family, about Sophia's laugh and terrible taste in music. She told him about her mother's battle with cancer, about the medical debt that had made her vulnerable to someone like Carlos in the first place. "I was so tired," Elena admitted one evening, curled in the corner of the couch with tea warming her hands. "Tired of struggling alone, of working doubles and still falling behind on bills. When Carlos offered to help, when he said we should move in together and split expenses, it felt like relief. Like maybe I could finally breathe. And then he isolated you? Slowly. So slowly I didn't notice until it was too late." She stared into her tea. First, it was just staying in more because going out cost money. Then it was not seeing friends because they didn't understand our relationship. Then he was checking my phone because he worried about me. By the time the hitting started, I was so cut off from everyone that I didn't know who to tell. Dante's jaw tightened. Where is he now? Carlos. Do you know? Your people send me updates. She'd been surprised when Marco started texting her weekly reports. Carlos had taken the job in Phoenix. He was staying with his brother. No attempts to contact her, no signs of returning to Chicago. He's really gone, isn't he? He's really gone, and if he ever comes back, he knows what happens. The certainty in Dante's voice should have troubled her. She knew what he was, what he did, the violence he was capable of ordering with a phone call. But sitting in the safety he'd created, feeling protected for the first time in months, Elena couldn't bring herself to care about the morality of his methods. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Always. Why aren't you married? You're—" she gestured vaguely. "Successful. Powerful. Good-looking. Why are you spending your evenings with a broken waitress instead of with someone appropriate?" Dante's expression shifted. Not closed, exactly, but careful. "I was engaged once, 6 years ago. Her name was Isabella. Our families arranged it. Traditional match, good alliance. She was beautiful, intelligent, everything I should have wanted. What happened? She couldn't reconcile who I was with who she needed me to be. The business, the violence, the moral ambiguity of my world. It terrified her. She wanted me to walk away, become legitimate, choose her over everything I'd built." He met Elena's eyes. "I couldn't do it. Walking away would have meant war, would have gotten people killed. So she left instead. Married a banker from Boston, last I heard. Has 3 kids and a house in the suburbs. Do you regret it?" "I regret that I couldn't be what she needed. But I don't regret my choice. This life, this responsibility, it's who I am. Anyone who can't accept that doesn't belong in my world." Elena absorbed this. "And you think I can accept it? A woman you saved from an abuser who you've known for 3 weeks? I think you see me clearly. Not the reputation, not the fear, but the actual person underneath." Dante leaned forward. "You don't flinch when I talk about my business. You don't judge me for the choices I make. You just accept that people are complicated." "People are complicated," she agreed. "You've done terrible things, probably. But you also saved my life. Both things can be true." "That's exactly what I mean." The conversation shifted to lighter topics. A movie she'd watched, a book he was reading. But something had changed in the air between them. An acknowledgement of connection that went beyond gratitude or protection. When Dante left that night, he paused at the door. "Elena, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. "Okay. I'm not doing this because of Sophia anymore. I'm not visiting because I feel obligated or guilty." He turned to face her fully. "I'm coming here because I want to see you. Because talking to you is the best part of my day. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, this stopped being about saving you and started being about something else." Elena's breath caught. "What kind of something else?" "The kind where I think about you constantly, where I find excuses to call, where I'm terrified I'm taking advantage of your vulnerability, but can't seem to stop myself from getting closer." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Tell me to back off. Tell me this is inappropriate and I'm crossing lines, and I will. I'll still protect you, still make sure you're safe, but I'll create distance." She should tell him to back off. Should recognize that this was textbook trauma bonding, that she was conflating safety with attraction, that getting involved with another dangerous man was the worst possible decision. But when she looked at Dante, really looked at him, she didn't see danger. She saw someone who'd caught her when she fell and never let go. Someone who'd dismantled her abuser's life with surgical precision. Someone who visited not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Someone who saw her as valuable when she'd forgotten her own worth. "Don't back off," Elena heard herself say. I don't want distance. I want this, whatever this is. The relief that flooded Dante's face was almost painful to witness. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, I'm sure. She moved closer, heart pounding. I'm terrified, and probably making a huge mistake, but I'm sure. He cupped her face gently, giving her time to pull away. She didn't pull away. When his lips met hers, the kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the aggressive claiming she'd endured with Carlos. This was question and answer, offer and acceptance, two broken people finding unexpected wholeness in each other. When they broke apart, Dante rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to do this right, slowly, no pressure, no expectations. Just seeing where this goes. Okay, Elena whispered. Slow sounds good. Slow lasted exactly 1 week before Elena's past came crashing back. She was at the apartment preparing dinner, something she'd started enjoying again now that food didn't taste like obligation, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Elena Martinez? A woman's voice. Official and clipped. Yes? This is Detective Sarah Morrison with Chicago PD. I need to ask you some questions about Carlos Ruiz. Elena's blood went cold. What about him? He's filed a police report claiming you stole money from him before fleeing the state. Says you emptied his bank account and disappeared. He's also claiming you fabricated allegations of abuse to cover your theft. A pause. I'd like you to come down to the station and make a statement. The room spun. Of course Carlos hadn't stayed gone. Of course he'd found a way to hurt her from Phoenix. This was exactly the kind of vindictive revenge he'd threatened, turning her into the criminal, making himself the victim. I didn't steal anything from him, Elena said, voice shaking. He controlled all our money. I didn't even have access to his accounts. Then you'll want to make that clear in your statement. Can you come in tomorrow? Say, 10 a.m.? Elena agreed because refusing would look suspicious. After hanging up, she immediately called Dante. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Carlos filed a police report. Says I stole from him. They want me to come in for questioning. The words tumbled out too fast. I didn't take anything, I swear. I don't even know his bank account numbers. But what if they don't believe me? What if... Breathe, Elena. Where are you? The apartment. I'm coming over. Don't talk to anyone else until I get there. Dante arrived 20 minutes later with a woman in her 40s wearing an expensive suit. This is Rebecca Stern, he said, best defense attorney in Chicago. She's going to handle this. Rebecca shook Elena's hand firmly. Tell me everything, starting from when you met Carlos. Elena recounted the whole story, moving in together, the gradual isolation, the abuse, the night she collapsed at Bellissimo. Rebecca took notes, asked pointed questions, nodded thoughtfully. Here's what's happening, Rebecca said when Elena finished. Carlos is making a calculated move. He knows he left Chicago under duress. He's trying to create a paper trail that makes him look like the victim, possibly to justify returning or to retaliate for being forced out. It's actually quite clever. Can he do that? Just lie to the police? People lie to police constantly. The question is whether they believe him. Rebecca pulled out her laptop. Fortunately, we have evidence on our side. The medical records from Dr. Ricci documenting your injuries. Your employment records showing your income and Carlos's control over finances. Witness statements from Bellissimo staff who saw you collapse. And most importantly, she looked at Dante. The security footage. Elena frowned. What security footage? From your apartment building, Dante said quietly. I've had surveillance on the location since the night I removed Carlos. The cameras show him leaving with his belongings, show my men helping him pack, show him taking nothing that wasn't his. More importantly, they show you weren't even present during the packing. You couldn't have stolen from him because you weren't there. You've been watching my apartment? I've been ensuring Carlos couldn't come back without me knowing. He met her eyes. I told you I'd protect you. That's what protection looks like. Rebecca continued. Tomorrow, you'll go to the police station with me present. You'll give a statement explaining the actual circumstances. The abuse, your escape, Carlos's forced relocation. I'll provide supporting documentation. The detective will quickly realize Carlos's story doesn't hold up to scrutiny. And then what? Then Carlos gets charged with filing a false police report, which is a crime. Combined with the protective order I'm going to help you file, he'll have even more legal reasons to stay in Phoenix. Rebecca's smile was sharp. By the time we're done, he'll regret making this move. The police interview was grueling but straightforward. Detective Morrison listened to Elena's statement, reviewed Rebecca's evidence, and her expression grew progressively colder. Ms. Martinez, she said finally, I apologize for bringing you in under these circumstances. It's clear Mr. Ruiz's allegations are baseless. We'll be closing this investigation and forwarding his false report to the Phoenix PD. Relief nearly knocked Elena sideways. Thank you. Outside the station, Rebecca handed her a business card. If Carlos tries anything else, calls, emails, showing up in person, you contact me immediately. The protective order will be finalized within a week. After that, any contact from him is automatically criminal. After Rebecca left, Elena turned to Dante. Thank you. For the attorney, the evidence, all of it. I couldn't have handled that alone. You shouldn't have to handle anything alone. He pulled her close, right there on the street, not caring who saw. You're mine to protect now, Elena. That means something in my world. That means you're untouchable. She should have bristled at being called his, should have asserted her independence, reminded him she wasn't property to be claimed. But standing in his arms, feeling safe despite Carlos's attempt to destroy her from a distance, Elena found she didn't mind belonging to someone who treated her like she was precious. Take me home, she said quietly. You're home. I don't want to be alone tonight. Dante's penthouse was exactly what she expected. Expensive, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But it was also surprisingly warm, filled with books and photos, evidence of a life lived beyond business and violence. They sat on his couch, Elena curled against his side, and talked until dawn painted the sky pink, about Carlos's pathetic revenge attempt, about Sophia and Elena's mother and the ghosts they both carried, about the future they might build together if they were brave enough. I'm falling in love with you, Dante said as the sun rose. I know it's too soon. I know you're still healing. But I need you to know that what I feel isn't gratitude or protectiveness or obligation. It's real. Elena's heart hammered. She thought about Carlos, about how love had felt like a trap. Then she thought about Dante, how he'd given her space to heal, how he'd respected every boundary, how he'd dismantled her abuser's life without asking for anything in return. This wasn't like Carlos. This was what love was supposed to feel like. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. And it's terrifying. But I think maybe I'm ready to be terrified with you. Dante kissed her softly. Then we'll be terrified together. 6 months later, Elena stood in the new community center bearing her mother's name, the Maria Martinez Center for Domestic Violence Support. The space was bright and welcoming, with counseling rooms, legal aid offices, a children's play area, and residential suites for women escaping dangerous situations. Dante had funded it entirely, refusing to let Elena contribute despite her protests. Your contribution is making it real, he'd said. Running it, shaping it, ensuring it actually helps people. That's worth more than money. Now, watching survivors move through the space, some scared, some hopeful, all desperately needing what they offered, Elena felt purpose settle into her bones. This was why she'd survived Carlos. This was why Dante had caught her when she fell. So they could build something that prevented other women from falling as far as she had. "It's perfect," Dante said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're perfect." She leaned back against him. "We're helping people. Real people with real problems. It feels significant." "It is significant. You're changing lives every day." He kissed her temple. "I'm proud of you." Elena turned in his arms. "I'm proud of us. For building something good out of something terrible. For choosing each other despite every reason we shouldn't work. We work because we're both broken in compatible ways," Dante said with a slight smile. "And because you're brave enough to love a man like me. You're brave enough to love a woman who still flinches at loud noises and has nightmares about her ex. We're both brave then." They stood together in the center that bore Elena's mother's name, surrounded by evidence of survival and hope. And Elena thought about the night she'd collapsed at table 12. If someone had told her then that falling would lead to this, to love, purpose, healing, she never would have believed them. But life was strange that way. Sometimes you had to fall completely apart before you could be rebuilt into something stronger. Sometimes the most dangerous man in the room was exactly who you needed to save you. And sometimes love looked like a mafia boss catching a broken waitress and refusing to let go. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.